Hello and welcome Success Grade Nation to this episode of the Success Grade podcast with your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, I have with me Danielle Harris to talk about how the power of your personal story to build a remarkable brand and how we can get more sales and supercharge the brand message. So Danielle is a marketing messaging consultant who guides coaches and service providers to attract dream clients by harnessing her unique stories. With over 10 years of experience, she believes personal narratives are among the most underutilized assets of business owners. Danielle is known for her love for chocolate travel and helping women led businesses create sustainable marketing success. So, Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I am glad you are with me on this episode. So, first of all, because this is the Success Grid podcast, I want you to answer me this. What does success means to you, and how do you see other people you work with have certain misconception of what success is?
Mm. It's always an interesting question. I think success depends on a lot of where you are in this current season of your life. But for me right now, success means being able to have the experiences that I want to have with the people that I want to have. And also, it's making sure that I'm able to help the people that I want to help. That looks like success for me. Misconceptions is chasing things that other people say that you want to have. And that is the fastest way that I know to burning yourself out and losing your sense of direction and what it is that you want to do. I believe that you need to go after and define success for yourself. And once you define what that means and what that looks like for you, you're going to be so much happier and you're going to feel so much more propelled to want to go after and go do those things. But chasing after someone else's version, it's the fastest way I know to get to burnout.
Yeah. So speaking of living someone else's virgin in business and in our personal life, we have to find some kind of unique things for us, unique voice, our own messaging in regards to business and even life also, I think. Because if we don't have some kind of purpose of type of things that we share in our, from within ourselves in business and life that we would maybe don't have some kind of success in general. So how and be differentiated from other people. So how do we have this kind of differentiation in our business branding or messaging to in regards to business itself?
Yeah. So, like I said, when you define success for yourself and you define your own goals, that really requires you to look inside yourself and decide what it is that you want. What is it that you are good at? What is it that you really want to go after? And once you do that type of inward reflection, then you start to say, okay, here are all the things that I bring to the table. And I think that's core and foundational when it comes to marketing and being able to position yourself and your business and where it is that you want to go after is having a very clear understanding of who you are, what gifts, talents you bring to the table, and how that can then be used to benefit other people. Of course, you're in business to make money, then also businesses, their core is to help other people. And when you are trying to differentiate yourself, you need to really look through and say, what are the things that I can bring? What are the things that I can do that are different than other people? But I think people tend to first look at different than other people versus first looking at what is it that I can do. And they don't take a full inventory of that and then compare that to saying, like, okay, these are all the things that I can do. Of all the things that I see out there, these are the things that are different. These are the things that I can do that are different, better than other people out there. But it first starts with you looking at yourself and being able to see, here's how my story is different. Here are how my talents are different. Here's how I was able to come over these adversities different than other people. And this is how I can then go about and help other people do that for themselves, whatever industry, whatever thing that might be. But it does take that first inventory of what it is that you can do that is better and different.
Yeah. So when we talk about, for example, stories or personal stories and how that helps us connect with clients or more surely to talk about like aligned clients, but how do you think how deep like sometimes people might ask how deep should I share? Like we know there are certain things that could be really personal. So what
Hmm.
is the things or the criterias, let's say, of the stories that we should share? Because some things could be personal, some things that some people would find really personal and deep and sad or whatever. So what do you
Hmm.
think is the, let's say, the framework or criteria for these stories? Do you have such a thing?
Yes. So I was talking to someone the other day about that line between what is too personal, what's a boundary that I have, and what's something that I'm simply just scared of talking about publicly. And so for me, I don't typically talk a lot about my family, bringing up things about them. That's just a boundary that I have. Not that I'm afraid of anything or fearful, but that's just a personal line that I have. And I tend to think of it as very neutral. Whenever I think about that, I'm not aggravated by that. I don't have like really strong thoughts or feelings about like, oh, look, I don't know, I just don't want to do that. It's just very like, oh no, I don't mention that. I don't talk about that. Versus other things where it's just like, oh, well, I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about let's say that I wanted to talk about a particular client, then it might be like, oh, well, I'm a little bit nervous to talk about this. You have a lot of feelings that come up about that. That tends to be like, oh, okay, well, that's something that maybe you're simply afraid of talking about, and that's something that you need to work to overcome. So, as far as a framework and a rule of thumb to look at, what is something that you're just like, oh no, like that's very easy. I don't talk about um, this personal thing. I don't talk about my family. I don't talk about these other things. And then another aspect of that are what are the things that you're just like, this, if I shared this, would be very impactful. I know that there's someone that I worked with in the past, and they work with people who have chronic illnesses. And so she talks to people not necessarily about every single thing that she's diagnosed with, because she's like, on one hand, that's not everyone's business to know, but I want other people to know it's going to be helpful for the people that I work with to understand that I do know what life with chronic illness is like, and life what with trying to run a business and being a parent, all of these things. I know what that looks like. And so for her, she has that line of saying, the exact diagnosis, not your business, but the fact that I do deal with this is something that I'm open to share about. And so I think that there is a line that you're able to have, but is one going to be a bit of what's going to be the most helpful and the beneficial for people. For me, I don't typically talk about family, but that's also not a field or realm that I necessarily help people with. So it's not necessarily a problem. If it's something going to go along the path of something that you are going to be helping people with, if you are someone that says you help with money, but you don't feel comfortable talking about money, then that might be a problem. Versus if you're a weight loss coach and you were helping people, um, and you said that, oh, I don't want to talk about traveling and all these other things, then like that could be fine because that's not something that's within the realm. So it's thinking about it through that frame. What's going to be the most helpful and beneficial for my people, and what's going to be a line that I'm just like, I'm not comfortable with that. It's a little wobbly, but it's also is very much like what's going to be the best in service of the people that you want to help. And can you neutrally and just confidently say like, oh yeah, no, I just don't do that.
Mhm. So that's very important. I think the place of where we can find sharing certain things about ourselves for the business and other people that would actually can resonate with other people in a way
Mhm.
that they can trust us, because eventually business is about that, about the relationships, about the trust. Because generally, this is why we see a lot of people have the same kind of business, but they maybe prefer to buy, for example, from one person, not the other, because they have some kind of element in their business or their life or what they say or what they share that resonates with these people. So they trust them, and sometimes it's not forced, the sale.
Mhm.
The sale is not forced. So I think this is what generally a business owner would want. Like, you don't want to force the sale. You want people to buy when they are basically ready. And one of the ways is actually to be human, I would say, right? And
Yeah.
have some kind of a degree of sharing certain things. That's
Yeah,
very.
and I think that really the biggest thing, I think a lot of times we focus on what I don't want to share, but I would prefer that you focus on what are the things that you are very open and very comfortable with sharing. Then people won't even realize the things that you aren't sharing, because with the things that you are very open and aware of, then they'll feel like they have a deeper connection with you with on the things that you're just like, yo, yeah, I have no problem sharing about this and this and this other thing. then you're gonna automatically feel open that they won't even notice it. Like, oh yeah, no, they don't talk about this, but it doesn't occur to them because for the things that you are open about, you are very open about.
Yeah. So, but there is like sometimes an issue when someone is like kind of talking about themselves. Like maybe you see these like the ones that would seem that they are like over promoting
Hmm.
themselves or uh, uh, demonstrating things that they are not actually are. So these people, in a certain point, I would say people will see that, right? It's not like going to be for a cover up for a long time. This is why authenticity is very important and not just like I talked to a lot of people and they say it's good even if you don't have some kind of personal story. It's good if you can create a story from fiction maybe, but that story should be in a way that is not misleading, I would say, right? Do you think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good?
I don't believe in making things out of fiction. I believe that everyone does have a story, and I think that people might not believe that what story they do have is good enough, and so they might be
Yeah,
inclined to want to embellish and do things along those lines. And I really just think that if you feel the need and the desire that like, oh, I have to add things, I have to add more, something that's more traumatic. I need to add
yeah,
something that sounds like, oh, I had to come up from the trenches of wherever in order to be able to rise up because people love a good rags to riches story. I don't think that any of that is required. I think you really just need to be able to tap in to say like, okay, what are the things that make me compelling? And I think that for a lot of people, that's very difficult to do that on their own. And that's a lot of the work that I do. I help people to go through the story that they already have. Like I said, they're probably undervaluing in and of itself and showing that and framing that in such a way that people realize like, oh, it is actually compelling. This is actually going to help people. But first and foremost, I also want to say that sharing your story, it's not just for self-glorification. That is not the point or the goal of sharing your story. The point of sharing your story is to create a connection with the people that you want to work with. So that's just like one of the reasons why you would say that. What as much as I want people to share their own story to create that connection, the other stories that you need to be telling in your marketing to get clients to grow your business, you also need to be telling the stories of the people that you work with. And if you are telling the stories of yourself, of how you've been able to overcome and how you are able to then connect with your audience, and then talking about the stories of the people that you have worked with, the wins that they've had, how at the very beginning of things they were doubtful of the results that they were going to get, and the small incremental milestones that you were able to help them through on their path of getting to that large result at the end, the better you're going to be able to market and position your business because you're going to be able to come over objections of saying like, oh, well, I'm busy, or oh, I don't have that much time, or oh, I don't have a large enough audience. You're able to then tailor your stories of like, oh, well, I didn't have a large audience either, and I was able to do this. Or my client, they didn't have a lot of time, and I was able to help them to do that. The goal of your story isn't just purely to talk about yourself and talk about how great you are. There is a purpose to telling your own story, and it's to be able to talk about how you've been able to overcome and how you also are able to help your clients overcome and get large results. So it's not just a self-glorification type of thing. It is in service of helping other people.
yeah, definitely. That's important. And when you share about yourself or other people that you have some kind of interaction with in a way that actually we talked about it leads with trust and authenticity. These things are important and would lead for the business in general to grow bit by bit because these things will actually lead to sales by themselves because generally people don't like to be sold to. They buy but they don't like to be sold to, I think. So it is better that these things come in from within themselves after they have certain, let's say, resonating with that person. But in general now, if we are going to tap into the sales itself, like what are the elements, maybe let's say with the best, I don't want to say sales pitch, but maybe let's say sales ladder, like to have the story within. So do we have always to begin with the story and where do we go from there after the story?
So I like to think with the end in mind. What is it that the people that you want to work with, what is it that they ultimately want? So, say for me, the people that I work with, they want clients. So if I were to talk about a story, I need to come up with the story of at the end of the day, people getting clients, and then all of, like you said, a ladder, all the rungs or all of the different obstacles that get into the way of getting those clients or the things that people think are stopping them from getting clients. So that could be uh, not knowing what to say in content. It could be I don't have a big enough audience. It could be that I haven't worked with that many people, so I can't talk to people about the results that I have. And so all the stories that I would talk about would then have some element of any of those things. How I was able to get a client with a small audience, how I was able to help my client get more clients with a small audience. Like those would be the types of stories that I would then go and talk about and say in my marketing. And it would be very casual of just like, hey, the other day I was working with this person and they were super nervous about the fact that they've been posting online and they don't have a large audience and that they are doubtful about the fact that they're able to get clients to grow their business. And through working together, these are the core things that I talked about, A, B, and C, and that led to her getting a new client. Like it's a simple story of showing the possibility of what's out there. And so I would do the same thing if you are someone that works with, say, you're a leadership coach and you help people to pivot into new careers, then you could say, like, hey, I just talked with someone who has been stuck at like entry, just above entry level, and they really want to go into a leadership role after a long time. These are the things that I help them do, A, B, and C. And after a long time, finally was able to get into a manager role that was paying the role that they want to go. Like you have to think with the end in mind of what your person ultimately wants, and then you can backtrack from there with they want this one thing and this is the core thing that they think is getting into their way of why they can't do this, and the story that goes to support that. And if you're thinking right now, I don't know what those stories are, then a couple things. Either A, try to work with some clients, whether it's pro bono or something along those lines to help get people those results. So you have those honest, true testimonials, because I don't want you lying about the results and the things that you are able to do. Um, or the with the clients that you are working with, work to try to see like, okay, what are those obstacles that they are already coming up with? Think back to their stories, their perspectives, where they started from, where they're at right now, and start framing those stories and telling those stories. So those are the couple things that I would suggest doing.
Mm. So, along those lines, what are, let's say, throughout your business, what are the worst advices that you have ever received in regards, for example, to stories or brand messaging or sales? Do you have such thing that you regret actually applying? Someone gave you an advice and you didn't, you regret applying?
Mm, that I regret applying. I didn't do it, but I've talked with people who suggested overinflating results for people that haven't received. People like they were this close away from essentially saying kind of lie about it or fake it till you make it type of results. I don't ever suggest doing that because you are not going to want to then market your business if you feel as if that is not true. I cannot get that. I cannot provide that. And that's actually going to slow you down. I am always in favor of what are the results that you have been able to get people, and how is that going to be more than enough for other people to want to come in and get results. Um, and then as you work harder and better and get more refined at what you can do, then your results will grow, and then you'll be able to promise more and bigger things as you're able to get people more results. But I would never say that like, oh yeah, like I'll be able to get you $1 million business in 6 months, and you're just like, have you done that before? Have you helped anybody to do that? Like that's lying. We're not a fan of doing that in your marketing. And there can be some ramifications of doing that if you're being deceitful. So that's the biggest thing. Don't over promise.
Yeah, so
It's
you
not going to
do.
work out for anyone. It's going to build distrust. People aren't going to trust you. People are going to then distrust a lot of people online of saying like you're just lying. I don't believe that, and it's actually just not good for everybody involved. That puts a bad tent for anyone who works in the online space.
Yeah, the fake it till you make it is not a good model, I would say. This
No.
type of things, right? So, what would you say the best tools, resources, or books that you would can recommend to people?
Well, I personally, if I was going to recommend a resource right now, I have a podcast, Marketing That Works, where I have an episode all about that, how to promise ethically what you can do, how to then go and tell your story in your within your own business so that you can get clients. So I would suggest going there. I have a couple episodes based off of that. But as far as some other books for like really trying to dive into, what it is that you can be doing for your business, I would say I have a love-hate relationship with this book, but I would say the 10x rule. And I think it's really just based off of how can you put a bit more effort into what it is that you're trying to do to grow your business. And then I'm also thinking of the 12-week year. And it's really about being dedicated and structured about the time that you spend on your tasks so that you're actually working forward to get things done. Because as much as I believe that like, yeah, there's a lot of strategy that you have to go through and a lot of pulling out of your own story and that type of thing, a lot of marketing is doing what you said that you were going to do when you were going to do it. And the better that you can be effective with your time and use it wisely, the more you're going to see compound results. So the more that you share it, you schedule out your time. Here are all the times that I'm sharing my story. That's going to have a compound effect. Here are the more people that I'm talking to about my story. Via like 10x rule, like the more results that you're going to be able to get. So as much as I believe in pulling that out, I also believe that it takes time and dedication and focus of your time and energy to make sure that those results happen because you are telling your story.
Definitely. So, Danielle, where can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn at Danielle R. Harris. You can find me on Instagram at Danielle.R.Harris. Again, you can listen to my podcast every week called Marketing That Works with Danielle R. Harris. And then you can also sign up for my email list where I give out a lot of great tips on how to connect with your audience, how to tell stories, and how to create marketing that's going to really bring in the clients that you want. And so you can sign up for my email list at drharrisconsulting.com/story.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel, for being here with me on this episode of the podcast and sharing your knowledge about how we should share our stories for business and how it can support the business to growth for more sales and being authentic and building connection and trust with other people. That's very important because eventually that is what business is about. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.